Steve, you been in a restaurant lately?
I have, yes.
If so, you've probably seen a digital screen or two.
A couple, yes.
Maybe a half dozen or
right.
more.
Yes.
More and more operators are adding screens to their business.
This is
for
true.
Entertainment, menus, KDS, self-service, advertising.
Oh, we're putting self-service in there. Okay, good. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, there's a
That's
screen
there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Interactive.
And that should represent opportunity for digital signage resellers.
It should.
Right?
Yes.
But only if you know what they're buying, why, challenges that you can solve. Now, we're not just going to give that all away to you right here. You got to listen to this episode.
Oh, I see.
That's the topic.
Gotcha.
That's the topic of our latest BlueStar Nation end user survey.
Yes.
And today's podcast.
I love these
We're
surveys.
talking about who did we talk to?
Yes.
What did we learn from them? How many consumer displays are they using?
Yes. Shame on them. Yes.
Important talking point.
I'm already going to call the shame card.
Spoiler
shame,
alert. Yeah.
Shame. Yes.
What are the top complaints?
Yes.
Which obviously will be a lot about consumer displays from what we're going to tell you.
Yep.
Who makes the purchasing decisions?
Yes. That's always good to know.
What gets them to make those decisions?
Even better to know.
Why?
Yeah.
We got all that data.
Holy moly. This was a good survey then.
Yeah, it is. So tell the bartender to put this episode up on the big screen. I'm sure everyone in the bar will be just tuned in.
That's it.
The big game? Who
needs
a big
that?
game when you can watch a podcast about digital signage. Yeah. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to BlueStar Nation. BlueStar Nation podcast is brought to you by ELO. The ELO Pay M100 provides the ultimate rugged enterprise-grade mobile point-of-sale tablet in a slim, ergonomic design featuring a 10.1-inch FHD scratch-resistant touch display, integrated payment with PCI PTS 6.0 pin-on glass, a flexible Android 12 OS, and a Qualcomm SD660 processor.
Super fast.
The M100 Pay merges powerful performance with a security unified architecture and extended lifecycle that businesses require. I bet that would be useful in a restaurant, don't you think?
You think? A little bit.
Table, stuff like that?
A little bit.
The M100 accepts payments from anywhere, includes integrated cameras, boasts sufficient battery life to last a shift, and can transition from mobile to fixed with a rotating POS dock that swivels from merchant to customer facing. To learn more and additional specifications, check the link in the show notes and contact the BlueStar ELO team. All right, Dean, let's get into it here. This was a survey that was sponsored by our friends over at Samsung.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
sponsoring
this.
Yes.
And we worked once again with our friends at VDC Research.
Good people.
To gather all of the data. And we got some
I'm kind of liking this VDC research stuff that they're pulling out there.
Giving us
they're combing out some good stuff.
They really are. Some good content and some good factual data to learn from here.
Yes.
So let's start off talking a little bit about who we talked to. I want to give kind of a quick rundown here. About 50% of the 100 people that we surveyed were with QSRs.
Okay.
31% were full service, casual dining, and the rest were a mix of fast casual, bar, pubs, and cafe and coffee shops. We again try to get a broad swath here, so we heard from single unit companies, franchises, and chains, and about 89% of the respondents were operating less than 500 locations.
I like that.
So we know a lot of our partners work in the SMB space.
Well, that's the reality.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's the reality.
Not for plus, if you're looking for opportunity, it's probably going to be at the SMB level and not, the big necessarily giant chains. If you can if you can catch the giant chains, great. But the smaller folks are the ones that you're really trying to get yourself in better with. Finally, 71% of the folks we talked to said that they had final decision making authority. The rest of them either provided recommendations or were very aware of the discussions. So again, these are people that obviously know the business. They represent a wide swath of different types of restaurant businesses. And also are people that do actually make the decisions about buying digital displays.
That's true.
Now, I want us to kick this off by addressing the giant elephant, the shameful elephant in the room.
Oh, my.
That you're going to be ringing your Game of Thrones shame bell at.
Yes.
We've been talking about Game of Thrones.
We have been, yes.
Consumer grade is still very, very, very prevalent in these businesses. 52% of the respondents said that most of their screens were consumer grade. 23% said all of them were consumer
It's sad,
grade.
Isn't it? Yes.
So that's what 75% were using mostly or all consumer grade in their business. And we know that's not a good thing.
That's right.
But maybe, Dean, how did you feel about seeing that? You said obviously you felt some shame about that.
I feel shame about that because as you know, I came out of this industry. Yeah. So I'm going to go back 20 years now in my commentary.
Hang on. Take a drink if you're playing the BlueStar game.
There you
Dean's
go.
talking about his digital signage days.
So there you go. Right. Back in the day, we used to make the same arguments of consumer grade versus commercial grade. Right. And the same arguments, I don't even have to look at the survey. I can guarantee you the same thing. It comes down to price. They're always going to say, I can go to Best Buy or back in the day, Circuit City or whatever and buy
Media Play.
Thank you. Yes. And I can buy a plasma monitor because we were talking I'm going back to then, not LCD. We're talking plasma monitors for a fraction of what I can buy this commercial, display that you're trying to sell me. And it's like, okay, but you're making a bad decision.
You're going to have to buy 5 of those.
You're going to have to buy 5 of them, or you are going to be shamed because that monitor is going to fail. It's going to show everything in blue with the blue sepia over it, or it's going to have lines running through it, or the contrast is going to die out, or whatever. I mean, we would make these arguments and people would still be like, nah, no, we're still going to go with the consumer grade.
Yeah.
Even if I could connect this personally, my daughter has a little TV in her room. She keeps it on all the time. And she was just the other day, she's like, Dad, my TV's terrible. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's not meant to be on 24/7. It has a certain life to it. So anyway, not a surprise that 23% of, and that it's kind of, it is what it is. 23. I guarantee you that's in the small. When you think about small to medium sized businesses, these are the small businesses who might not have the cash. But what I was hoping before the survey came out is that the gap between commercial and consumers was skinny enough now that it really didn't, people would see the value of jumping up to a commercial grade. Like, okay, so I was at Best Buy. You're still in the, several $100 range to get anything. Let's just say a 42-inch screen.
Yeah, bigger, especially a big one that you'd need.
You're gonna have to spend at least $500, even commercial grade. So I'm sorry, consumer grade. Commercial grade, you're probably looking at maybe twice that. But I think it's just so obvious what the benefits are of going to a commercial grade. That's for 23% of the market. That's still not ringing, true.
Yeah.
So we still got issues out there in the sense that, but I get it. If you're a small business and you want to throw up a digital menu board and you want to have that digital experience, but $500 is still $500.
Yep.
At the end of the road. So
it is.
There you go.
All right. Well, then that obviously brings up the next question, which is always like, okay, so these people are using a lot of consumer grade out there. Where are they finding issues? Where are the headaches? Where are the pain points? You already illustrated some of them.
Yep.
There was one that was kind of interesting for us that when we were crunching the data on this survey and putting together the article, which is that content is a big deal for a lot of them. So 88% of respondents said that menus and content were hard to keep updated across locations, which I think especially is relevant if, again, most of the, your typical restaurateur probably doesn't have just one location. They're usually trying to expand and operate in, more than one location. So that was the number one issue and headache. The other two top issues were brightness and image issues, harking back to what you were talking about. 64% said that was a problem. And then 50% said frequent outages. So what do these say to you, Dean? Especially the content piece to you.
Get your drink ready. Because I'm going to go back to my days again when I was in digital science. Take another shot because what has always been the issue? Content. Yeah. Content is king. We used to talk about it all the time back in the day, and that it has not changed one iota in the 20 years that we've been now in this digital signage experience. And so, I was hoping that. And I think there is some hope here in the sense that, you've got generative AI for creating content. You've got certain automations that you can deploy to help that because it is a truism. Once you throw the screen up there, and yes, you can now add content to that. You feel like you got to keep it fresh, and updated with information. Mm-hmm. But when you're a small business owner who's slinging pizzas in the background or I don't know, whatever kind of restaurant it might be, that is not your skill set. You are not a graphic designer. This is not what you're trying to do. So what we would do, our approach was trying to use automation, even back in the day, with RSS feeds that you could tie into and have like at least news crawlers or weather that you would see, some type of content that was relevant for the day, that made it meaningful if anybody happened to catch their eye in a passive signage kind of environment where you would have that content that's going on. So I totally get it that it is still a struggle for people, that what content do we put on there? And when we do put content in, let's just make it simple, like a digital menu board. How do we make it engaging? So I can just put my menu up there, but now what have I done? I've just taken a printed menu, put it on my digital screen. Where really the effect is now it'd be great to animate the things that you want to try to promote. It would be good to maybe tie it into your point of sale system. So if you have overages on something, you can promote something. You could day part, your menu and stuff like that, taking true advantage of the nature of digital signage. Yeah. So unfortunately, this doesn't surprise me either. The content is the number one thing on of why it's. What was the question there that they were responding to?
Keeping it hard to keep updated across locations, but we did also see 43% said keeping display content updated in general was a problem. Yeah, and I the across locations thing I think is important there too, because you were just talking about the idea of like being able to like relay specials or have inventory adjustments. I know there's a lot of, restaurants, this is not something consumers like, but there's a lot of restaurants that are dabbling in, like that kind of dynamic pricing, where, pricing changes maybe based on the time of day or the demand, or if you're running low on something and you've got a lot of stock of something else you're trying to burn off, maybe you lower the price a little bit. And again, like if you have multiple locations, that's something you'd want to be able to kind of snap a finger and make happen everywhere all at once. Yeah. And that's, or maybe you've got a new special that you want to roll out, all of a sudden. Well, I'm imagining that operator doesn't want to have to drive around to 15 different stores.
Exactly.
And manually load it up on every screen. No, they'd just like to be able to say, all right, it's done, flip the switch, and it's going.
Which most modern systems, I mean, if you're still sneaker netting around USB keys, man, that's like, that would be harsh.
I would hope that you, as a VAR, are very much seeking that customer out and making the case to make the change. Yes. They should be ready at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just think there's ways to mitigate that. There are tools within CMSs now to really help you do that. Right. I can't imagine a location that doesn't have some type of Wi-Fi, umbrella kind of over their facility, no matter where you're at. So I think a lot of those, old issues that we were facing, but it's still true, right? You still need to assign somebody that task. Somebody still has to do that, even if you have multiple locations, and bringing maybe uniqueness to each location. Somebody has to have the ownership to do that. So it's still a challenge there.
Exactly.
When you look at the number, you were going to say something else there?
I was just curious if you think that. The reason why maybe a lot of these companies and businesses are still sticking with the consumer brand, is it because a lot of them maybe like content wise are just like, well, I just need to put the game on.
Yes.
And that's just, something I plug in cable or, a streaming service and connect it to Wi-Fi and just run the game. And I can do that at home on my, consumer device. Why should it be any different here? Do you feel like that's probably part of the problem here? Is just like, based on the content they are putting out there, they just don't feel like there's a need to do anything particularly fancy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that part of it is just pacifying the audience once they're in.
Right.
And when you go up to the top of our survey and you see the number of screens per location, I was really genuinely surprised at this. Yeah. 43% of locations have 3 to 9 screens at the location. When you think about 9 screens, what are you going to do with 9 screens if you have just a typical size, let's just say restaurant? I
guess you can have a football game on one, golf on another.
Well, that's what's going to happen, right? That's exactly.
ESPN, so you have the Ocho.
You have 2 for your menu board. Let's just kind of walk through this. Maybe you have an interactive one. Okay, but now what are you doing with the other 4? Well, you're throwing on the game. You're doing something like that. But again, you still, because of the environment, you're going to want commercial grade over consumer grade. But even there, it's 22%. So when you look at this, let's see here, 35% of locations have 10 screens or more. That's a lot of screens, to have in a location. And yes, I think that, part of that content's just going to be the game. And then that gets into maybe some of your issues that were below content, which is brightness issues and frequent outages. To me, what this is claiming is just, again, you're buying the wrong screen for what you're trying to do. Yeah. Because even in the most basic bar or whatever, I mean, everybody turns on the TV, so the TV is on for a minimum of 12 hours a day, if not more. Yeah. And these screens are just not, consumer is just not made to be on that long. So there you go.
Well, the other part too is you mentioned like the plethora of screens in some of these places that are saying they're rocking 10 to 29. Mm-hmm. And to your point, like, I've been to like sports bars where they've, you've got like the ring of screens above the bar, mm-hmm. and there's like, another 5 to 10 scattered throughout the facility. Mm-hmm. There's a good chance most of those screens are running the same game. Mm-hmm. And I've been in situations sometimes where I've been sitting there and I look up and I'm just like, why am I looking at 4 screens with the exact same thing on? And granted, they could put on different games potentially if there's an option, but let's be honest, like probably, especially if you're a sports bar like in a local, area mm-hmm. that has a local team, you're probably wanting to show just that game. Well, why wouldn't you maybe allocate a couple of those screens to something else?
I think the smart ones do that.
To showing, some specials, showing like, hey, it's happy hour right now. Get your drinks in, or happy hour's ending, in half an hour, time to order, order your last beverage or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or, you could recommend other places. You could have third-party advertising stuff going on there. It seems to me like just a complete waste of space.
It is.
If you have so many screens that people can see so many at once, and you're just putting the same thing on every single one of them.
Yep. You're exactly right. So what that's showing you is that the location, the ownership has decided, okay, we're going to throw up screens.
Right.
And then that's it. They haven't decided like...
We didn't think beyond that.
We didn't think really beyond that. We checked the box that, yes, we have screens everywhere so we can show the Packers game 8 times over. Right. But that's not really helping. So the really smart ones will use some of those screens for just that. Whether it's internal, promotions. Yes, you can tap into retail media networks now where you can actually get paid for the advertising that's on your screens. Yep. Hint, hint, that's some recurring revenue to all our resellers out there.
Nod,
get involved in that, offer that service. Use that blank screen to actually make some money for you or entertain people, because even during the best games, they all take commercial breaks. You don't want to watch commercials. Your eyes are going to wander over. You're going to look at, there's some trivia going on here, or maybe something else, and then you're putting in high margin items of sugary goods or salty goods that you sell. That's going to increase your bars.
What if you have a restaurant where, like, maybe it's like a family restaurant and everyone's bringing their family, and mm-hmm. Maybe the adults are watching the game, but like mm-hmm. there's kids that are like, they don't care about the game and they want to be entertained too. Maybe you have some kind of children's programming,
little anime running on there that you don't really need the sound to it,
because trivia or something like that. I like a good trivia game up on the screen.
That's it. That's it.
It baffles me that because and again, I'm not, to your point. Like, I know there are some that have smartly thought about it, but I have sat in more than my fair share of restaurants, and even like big national chains mm-hmm. where they have the obscene amount of screens, and you look around and you're just like, well, this is all the same thing.
Same thing.
I guess I just gotta pick which one is in my line of sight while I'm eating or something, and that's it. So I mean, and I think you could still do that. You could have enough screen setup where everyone's sitting around a table could see the game, and yet still probably have 2 or 3 additional screens that they could be looking at.
Absolutely. And even more shame, I'm going to go down a point here, even more shame to those that use consumer grade screens, but don't take advantage of the smart aspects of those screens.
That's a very good point.
So commercial grade typically doesn't come with the smart aspect that we're all used to at home. I mean, what is preventing you from developing your own loop, throwing it on a YouTube channel, and then just full-sizing that YouTube channel on your smart display? You bought the consumer grade because it was a lower cost, but it actually has all these hidden features in it that you could then leverage for content if you really wanted to and be smart about it. Anyway, I digress.
They're plugging a coax cable into the back.
So I'm going to ring the shame bell to the 23% that have these consumer grades that aren't even using the full functionality of everything that comes on that cheap monitor.
That does crack me up, as every now and then you'll see them like changing games, and they're going to like, the direct TV feed or something and scrolling through 5,000 channels to find another game that's on that everyone wants to watch. And you're like, really?
Really?
Like, you understand you could just probably go to an app and search that right now and get it right there in 5 seconds. Right?
That's it. Oh man, yeah.
That's
but
when
anyway,
you want to go grab the remote out of the hand and be like, "Give me that!
Yeah, give me that thing. What are you doing?
I'll do this for you."
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we understand some of the big challenges that are happening out there, we understand that there's a lot of consumer grade. Now you might be thinking, "All right, well, I need to go and sell some stuff to people. I need to convince some people they need to be buying the commercial grade, screens." But you got to figure out, like, who am I supposed to talk to?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the people that I need to be connecting with?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know if this is surprising. I'm curious from your point of view and harkening back to your experience, getting your next shot ready.
Yep.
The executive level of involvement that seems to be happening now, where when we asked, like, hey, who should basically be selling to, we were asking who recommends and evaluates new technology and who has final approval and budget authority. Well, at the top of both lists is executive and leadership and owners. 42% said that they were the ones who make that evaluate the new tech, and 48% said they had the final approval on the budgeting, which kind of makes sense. But what I thought was interesting is on the evaluation side, 30% said the IT and technology teams, 25% operations. That's inverted when you get to the actual authority part, though. The budget and approval, it's 28% operations, 23% of the IT. Does that still ring true to your experience, or has that changed? Like, were you typically dealing with a lot of executives?
Yeah, unfortunately, you were. Okay. Absolutely. That rings true because, especially in the SMB space, and again, I think the survey did a really good job of kind of getting, across different titles, if you will. But still, the executives are involved in there because typically, we also have to remember that it is a very public thing. When you put these screens out there, you are now engaged in the customer experience, whatever dialogue. It affects the customer experience. So a lot of owners are going to want to be involved in that, and they're going to want to know what's going on and what the costs are going to be and stuff like that. And as the aforementioned, obviously, since we're using a lot of consumer grade, cost is something. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they're in the evaluation process and they're in the approval budget, the top people within that. Now, it is interesting that IT and operations kind of flips a little bit there because, a lot of, I guess that just goes to say, again, that a lot of companies lean on their IT support. And again, a lot of these SMBs are probably outsourcing their IT as well. So they're going to get their opinion of what are we putting in, what is actually going to take to do the job. And then it's the ops people that are actually, who's probably internal, they're the ones that are actually doing the final approval because they're the ones, or at least they're in that fold, because now they got to maintain it. So, the ones that are doing it effectively, they know that there is an operational aspect to this and they're going to lean in to wanting to be a part of it. So, that seems about right to me on how that, how the decision is being made.
Okay. The next thing I kind of want to talk about here was this idea, and I love that we included some questions about this, was understanding like the centralization, decentralization, the governance essentially of how these decisions are made.
Yeah.
This is one of those things. Check out the link in the show notes. I highly recommend you actually look at the article and look at the chart related to this because it's very illustrative of, depending on the number of locations within the franchise business, whatever you want to think of the overall corporation, has a lot to do with how decisions are made and whether it is a centralized decision that's kind of rolled out to everyone, whether independent franchisors might have some autonomy. And obviously, it's as what you would expect. Any of them with single locations, basically, were like almost all of them are independent. They're making their own decisions. What I thought was fascinating is kind of the middle and the other end. So at the other end, where you've got 1,000 to 5,000 locations, it's either a mixture of centralization or about half and half split where half said it was independent choices. And I guess, does that just mean that like when you get to have a company that freaking big with that many locations, that you just kind of be like, hey, we're going to let the local franchise owner or independent owner make those decisions because trying to roll out something to every single location is just too big to handle?
I guess so, right? Yes, that's what that's telling me, is that like when it comes to the infrastructure, you have autonomy to make this decision.
Right.
Maybe there's less autonomy on the content that's going to go on there, as long as it meets this requirement or something like that. But if you want an LG or a Samsung or
we don't care as long as it does X, Y, Z.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we care. Hopefully that's more Samsung this time around than not. But yeah, right. I mean, maybe that local autonomy is like just given to those, especially in a franchise organization, because now it's probably the expense of that franchisor.
That's a good point.
Rather than coming from the central area,
the corporate area. Because I wonder if maybe that is a opportunity that a lot of folks maybe typically steer away from. Like,
I would think so.
I'm not going to mess.
I'm not even going to go in there,
right?
Because I assume it's some kind of
Exactly. I wonder if that could be an opportunity to knock on a door and say, "Hey, do you get to make your own decisions about this?" All right, great. Point. Let's talk.
Really good point.
And then the other part is like at the midpoint too, when you get into organizations with number of locations numbering between 50 and 99, that is a split here also, where it's the lowest amount that said that there was a centralized, just a little over 40% said it was centralized, and 30% of those said that it was completely decentralized decision-making models. Then you have a little bit of independent and mixed in there as well. I thought it was interesting that mid-tier point was the point where you see more decentralization than anywhere else on this chart.
Yep.
What do you make of that?
I don't know. I think that's a hard one to crack. I don't really have a good explanation of that, but clearly the data, it's like glaring that this is the 50 to 99. Yeah, that's a significant member or part of the population here is like decentralized. Okay. So we're not going to make the decision. It's amongst the members is all I can ascertain there of the different, and that's really, I don't know why that's such a sweet spot for there, but that's a learning.
And it's an opportunity, clearly.
There you go. There's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Boom. To walk in there. I don't know. Do you got a thought on that?
I really don't either. Like I mean, I like how if you check this out just below that, Cordy, who wrote this article, James Cordy, also kind of gave some kind of low-hanging fruit and sales approach ideas based on centralization and whether they were centralized, not mixed, independent. And I like, it kind of noted on the decentralized side that the best approaches there could be quick local demos, risk-free pilots, and the lower-hanging fruit is the fast closes and minimal IT requirements. So that maybe there's just an opportunity there to just go in and win some quick business by just, showing what you've got, offering up some pilots that there's not an interest. Maybe they just don't want to be hassled with this. So that also could be why they are going out and buying consumer grade stuff, because it's just like, I know I need this.
Yep.
I don't really want to think that hard about it. I'm busy. I got stuff going on. I'm in that middle area where I'm small enough that I got to do a lot of stuff on my own, but also big enough where we've got a crap ton of locations. And I just, I need a TV, go buy a TV kind of thing.
Exactly.
Could be just
that's got to be what's happening here.
Sending a store manager or assistant manager to go run off and buy a TV to stick up, So,
so really fascinating though.
Check that out, because I think that's a useful part too, kind of explaining, how you can potentially approach some of these situations based on the governance model, as he put it, for these.
Yep. Good stuff.
Any other thoughts you had there on the, the decentralization, the governance, the decision makers?
No, because you touched on that matrix I was going to touch on too, the governance model.
Okay.
Really good stuff there.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing I wanted to kind of hit on here at our main talking points here is emerging technology, because, we're always fascinated by like, hey, what's happening in the world of emerging tech? Where are people paying attention to new technologies? And of course, in particular, we were asking about AI, because that's always, super relevant. We were asking about things like integration with online delivery, into these displays, labor and scheduling software, mobile ordering, loyalty apps, digital menu boards, which are growing. So some interesting numbers came out of this, I thought, because, again, I think given that we've just understood that a significant number of these operations are doing, consumer grade.
Yes.
There's a surprising amount of them, though, that want a lot of, very commercialized enterprise tools and software.
Yes.
Which probably will not play very nice with consumer grade devices at all. So looking at the chart here, we had 58% said that they are already using digital menu boards, and another 33% planning to use.
Yep.
57% doing online delivery integration, 33% planning. Labor scheduling software, 42% using 48% plan, and the mobile ordering, 51% using a 38% plan. So basically, nearly 100%, in the upper 80s or over 90% of these respondents said that they are either already using or plan to use a lot of these innovations. And then the AI adoption, that's starting to happen as well. Mm-hmm. Over half said that they are currently using for online ordering reservations, creating display content. Back to your earlier point.
Yes.
The ones I guess that actually are doing it are making a case for that.
Yep.
Menu pricing, 51%, inventory and waste management, staff scheduling. I feel like all of these questions are telling you something about what these people are trying to do and want to do and the technology that they are currently using, which makes it even more baffling to me that they are using consumer devices that much. Does that how to read to you too? Like, wait a minute.
Yes.
They're on board with all this modern innovation.
Yes.
But they're still going out and buying a screen from Best Buy.
Right. which to the average Joe, I guess, is still seen as buying technology. Like,
that's a good point.
I guess the industry has done a poor job of just creating differentiation between consumer and commercial enough to matter. In that regard. But this is interesting because, this is a telltale sign that obviously there is interest in technology and where the puck, if I could, is going. Yeah. People, there's a little bit of FOMO going on here. They don't want to seem like they're out of touch and using AI and using some of this technology. I'm a little surprised that 52% say they're using AI to create content.
That's one of those things where I hear that and I'm like, are you
really? I don't know.
What do you think that means? Does that mean what
exactly,
I think?
Right?
Does that mean what we think it means, or does that mean you just had it make a random image of a donut one day or something?
Yeah. But to your point, commercial grade monitors are going to have such things as modularity, where you can plug in cameras. Maybe if you're in in a retail setting, and you want to start doing buyer behavior and those kinds of things, you're not going to be able to get that, integrating that into a consumer model. Yep. So I think some of the sophistication that's coming down the line around technology and how the use of AI and the use of some of these apps is going to have an influence on everything within the store, the display being one of those, is going to be very, very prevalent. So, but it is, you can paint it as a little bit of a dichotomy, like, they see the value over here, but they're not seeing the value necessarily in the screen technology. Again, I think the industry can do a little bit better job, or we just need to do a better job collectively as an ecosystem of explaining why that's, why the value is there on having commercial grade monitors.
Cool. All right.
But
go ahead. Sorry.
No, but it is interesting. And then when you go back to, I didn't know if we were going to touch on this a little bit, but up above we said, when you think about the sales cycle, like how do you get people into saying yes to a demo? Were you going to touch on that?
Let's get to that in our value section.
All right, fair enough.
Because I wanted to wrap up with a few other takeaways that we had in the survey.
There's some good.
That is what I had on my list, but I want to get your takes on that too.
Yes.
So before we do that, a quick note: what's happening around BlueStar Nation? Hey, if you liked what you just heard us talking about here,
yes,
and you think this kind of data is useful, you really should be checking out the BlueStar Nation blog, because we are constantly doing surveys like this. We typically do at least one a quarter, sometimes one every couple of months or so. A lot of our vendor partners are sponsoring these and are interested in collecting data. I know we've got some upcoming in healthcare. We just published a loss prevention in retail one that I think you might find especially useful if you're playing in the same space and you play in retail. Also, there's some exceptional data that came out of that one. That one's a deep dive that I'm still digging through all the good stuff that came out of that. And I look forward to us chatting about that on the show at some point in the future. So, hey, if you like that kind of stuff, you want to understand what's happening from end users, you should be following along to our blog. We also do lots of other great stuff like event recaps. We dig into some of the trends that are happening out in the channel. We share sales and marketing tips. Sometimes we do some interviews with channel players. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on new articles, the best way to do it is subscribe to the BlueStar Nation newsletter. There's a link in our show notes where you can do that, or just send an email to us and we'll be happy to get you subscribed to that. Follow us on LinkedIn also. We almost always publish, post about these articles and link to them there. It's a great way to keep up with this stuff. It's good stuff that can help you get ahead and find new opportunities for your business.
For sure.
So don't hesitate to reach out, tell us what you want there. And also, if you have ideas ideas for not just for the podcast. I know I always talk about that at this point, but for these surveys.
Yep.
If you're sitting there thinking, man, I would love to hear from 100 of my customers about X, tell us X, and we will go out and do the survey. We will find one of our vendor partners that might be interested in sponsoring that, and we will be happy to go out and collect that data. I mean, I think we're doing very useful surveys in a lot of useful industries. But I would love if there was something that is on top of your mind and thinking, man, if I could have 100 people explain.
No, we need people who are out in the streets every day.
Yeah.
Like, what are you hearing? Yeah, what do you need to...
Exactly.
Yep.
We will go out and we will get that data for you and then put a nice article together and talk about it on the podcast.
Boom.
I mean, you don't even have to do the work. You just tell us what you want to hear about. We do it all for you. No charge.
What could be easier?
Come on. Yeah, what could be easier? While you're doing all that, take a brief moment, as always, to like and subscribe to the BlueStar Nation podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Leave us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcast or the podcast platform of your choice. Again, of course, follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to us with any of your thoughts or ideas for the show. That email address is nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, let's wrap things up. So, yes, I mean, I know I cut you off earlier.
Yeah,
I wanted us to give the opportunity here for to talk about anything else that stood out in the survey as action items that you think that VARs should really be paying attention to. You had one of the same thoughts as I did. So you talk about the idea of getting someone to say yes to a demo and actually let you stick your foot in the door to try to convert them over to a commercial display.
Yep. So so the survey calls out that the top 3 motivators are peer recommendations, 40%. Number 2, special offers, 40%. And then peer case studies. So let's dive into this. So this is what you're trying to do is get the buyer, the end user, to a demo, because we all know that if you can get to the demo phase, that greatly increases your chances of actually getting a sale.
Yep.
So recommendation from trusted peers or operators. So if you are selling into some of these environments, and we just went through, that most of the survey dealt with locations that are, more than just one, right? You've got 20, 30, whatever, or so locations. If you can get in on one of those operators, then I would use that as the catalyst to get into all the operators, right?
Yep.
And then try to build trust with those operators and then leverage that trust across the other operators. So if you can get into a franchisor and then you've got one, now go and communicate to the other ones. It doesn't even matter if they're not in your backyard, just go talk to them. Yeah. Because obviously there's going to be, if you're trying to get them to that demo, if you're trying to get them to that sale, most of them are going to take the recommendations of other people within their ecosystem, which would be their peer operators and things of that nature. Yep. So that's a really good one. And I'm going to leap down to the peer case study. We used to use this all the time. Yep. When you create when you are successful in an installation that fits a particular market, and it can be very, very niche. We did gas stations, for example, very niche. We came up with a case study and then leveraged that to go after other gas stations. And yes, that's gonna ring more true to the end user when they're reading a case study about, their brother in arms, the other gas station owner. It could be across the street, doesn't even matter. Here's the success they're having with this system. I can connect to that. Yes, I'm willing to demo now your system. Yep. Special offers, okay. That's maybe a little gimmicky to my regard with a free trial, but right. I'm okay with that if that's something that you kind of need to get it over the goal line to say, hey, look, I know you're really interested, but you're a little concerned, obviously, in the cost, so we'll offer some type of special discount. So anyway, I thought that this was really good stuff on how you can get somebody to say yes to the demo. You agree?
Yeah,
right?
I absolutely agree. And it also made me think like, hey, if you're thinking like, hey, the case study idea sounds great, but I don't know how to make that happen. Hey, we here at BlueStar have an apparatus to assist you with that. As part of our Demand Lab marketing program, we have occasionally done some nice video case studies. Marco, who's our producer behind the scenes here, he goes out and helps us shoot those things where we will actually, if you've got a customer that you're able to show off and, it's not proprietary or something you got to keep confidential or whatever, like we will be happy to go out and film a case study, interview some folks, learn about what worked and what didn't and what the problems were. Get some on-site footage of stuff, put together a video case study, something that you could then go out and use to help you win some new business. Especially if we're partnered up with one of our vendor partners who might be willing to kind of kick in a little bit and help out with that, that case study and putting that together. So if you're looking for that opportunity, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'll throw a link down in the show notes to our Demand Lab marketing menu. There's lots of other stuff, great stuff there too, if you're looking to figure out how to do some additional marketing and need some help. But hey, that's something we could assist you with. And to your point, Dean, I think a great case study can go a long way to getting your foot in the door.
Absolutely.
Go to someone and say, hey, I'm not just saying that I can do this. Yeah. I have done this. Yeah. Here's the proof. Check it out.
Exactly.
And when you've checked it out and realize what we can do, give me a call and
it's a great tactic.
We'll work on doing the same thing for you.
It was very rare that you wouldn't at least get somebody to say, all right, come on in and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least to get you that conversation, it will get you there. Yeah. It will get you in there.
Especially if it's someone they know. Yeah.
100%. Now, the other thing in this survey I wanted to kind of bring to light is let's talk about displays for just a second. Okay. And how much do different factors matter when it comes to displays? I thought this was a really good part of the survey as well. Yep. And I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, that the top two ranking factors. So what is it in a world of, is it warranty? Is it durability? Is it energy efficiency? The top two, brand and price. So thank you once again to Samsung for sponsoring this survey, but that indicates to you that really the brand is very, very important. 53% categorize brand as very important.
Very important. And another 35%
and that's surprising.
Important.
When you think about it, if you're going to go and do a consumer grade or something like that, maybe brand, you would think that brand is less important because I can't even name all the consumer brand displays that are out there. There's a lot of them, right? But clearly people are attributing some value to the brand. So you're going to want to make sure that you're working with great brands like Samsung. Price, obviously, that makes sense. I think we've already laid out why a certain part of the segmentation is going to go after the lower price.
Well, and I think that's one of those things. I don't care what you're surveying people on. If you ask them if price is important to them, they're going to say price is important.
That's right.
Even if at the end of the day, it really is not the deciding factor, they will almost always say their price is important regardless.
Yeah. I agree. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is at the end of this survey, I love the fact, and these research things that we do are very dense with information, but I think what the BlueStar Nation article will differentiate itself from other industry articles is it has, as this one does, key takeaways and how you can win deals. Yep. So just look at the main call outs here. Solve the content problem. Yep. Really good point. If you don't have it, you need to think that through for your customer and give them the tools. They're out there so that they can solve the content problem. Lead with speed outcomes. So, get into that, providing ROI calculators. They're out there. Yep. When it gets into those types of things, you can do that. Just be well versed when you get into that.
Yeah. It's an ROI kind of conversation.
Yep. Yeah. ROI conversation.
Yeah. Cause we didn't really even get into, the idea, like we've talked about a lot of displays, like as for like entertainment purposes and for, advertising and, just showing what you've got going on in your restaurant or whatever. Like this part, we're kind of talking about the idea of like, hey, how can a good digital display help you, get higher order counts, help you get through the drive-through a little bit faster, help you draw people into your business. And again, the idea that a good digital display can actually potentially help speed up your business, get more customers through and out the door and open up tables for more folks.
And it's so true. It's having part of those conversations, or at least those bullet points in your talk track are critical because it's obvious in some parts of the industry, especially in the small to medium size, where they just don't see the value of the communication channel that digital displays gives you and the ability to really kind of influence sales and influence what is being purchased and stuff like that. You really can. It is very, very effective. There's been, there's got to be hundreds of reports that have come out on the effectiveness of digital over just static print signage and stuff like that. So anyway, good stuff here, even at the end, that is tailored towards how VARs can win deals.
Yep. And for as much as we did cover here, there's so much more info in there. Like we got some good data about third-party advertising.
Yes. Going back to
tips
that.
And tricks, some barriers to adoption. We're not going to give it all away for you here.
No, but what I love about this, I agree with you. It's a dense article. It's got really a lot of good information, but it's not a long read.
No, it's not. Nope.
You guys have done such a good job of just combing up the important points, putting it in snackable little bites here. Yeah. This is really good stuff. I mean, it just paints a picture of what the actual industry is.
Very much
and
so.
How you can attack it.
I mean, I personally think if you are a hospitality VAR and you don't read this and you don't think it's important to you,
then you don't really care.
Yeah, I guess you're just not really interested in growing your business.
Yeah, it tells you who to talk to, what to talk to them about. It's good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's wrap up as always, Dean, with what's on our radar, where we talk about something in the world of tech, business, science, innovation, entertainment, whatever you feel like. What's on your radar right now?
So I came across a Wall Street Journal article that is the corporate jargons that you should avoid at all costs.
Well, I'm always interested in these because I feel like these evolve every few years.
They do evolve so I'm going to rattle off a couple of them, and you have to catch yourself if you are ever using some of these in your daily talking, right? All right? Do you have the bandwidth necessary? So bandwidth.
I have used that from time to time.
Bandwidth is a jargon that we need to get rid of. So anyway, the Wall Street Journal, by the way, asked readers to send in what are the worst corporate jargons that are happening right now. And so
I usually just tell people I am overwhelmed and bogged down. Same thing, but more explicit. I'm I'm not going to talk about some bandwidth. I'm just going to say life sucks and I need you to help me out.
Yes. Do you want to be the change agent to something?
Oh God, I do not use that.
Okay, good. All right, so you're not using that.
That is hack right there.
Well, let's circle back and talk about it. How about the circle back?
I've probably used
if we resurrect some of your emails, we might find a circle back in there.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you got to stop.
I feel like the context of how you use that too, though, because sometimes people use circle back as a way to shut someone up. Be like, look, I don't really want to talk about this right now. Let's circle back on that later. Knowing full well that circle is like a giant elliptical loop that goes around the sun and comes back maybe 2 years later.
It's taking a full 365 days at a minimum, right? How about deep diving into some things? Maybe we should do a little bit of a deep dive on this.
I know I've used that in the context of some of our advertising and marketing campaigns.
Okay,
I've used it for the podcast. We're doing a deep dive into blah blah blah.
Oh well, we've got to get that out of our lexicon of what we're saying.
I don't know why people have a problem with that.
Apparently, some people have issues with that.
We're going to do a shallow to mid dive into restaurant displays.
No deep dive. Right.
We're not going too deep, though. Don't worry. You're not going to drown or anything.
We're going to do a hard stop. How about a hard stop? Are you using that one?
I'm not that guy that ever has back-to-back meetings like that. Typically, I very much try to avoid it. I know it happens. I'm sure every once in a while I will say hey, I got to have a hard stop at 1 for blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that's only if I honestly feel like the meeting's going to run long. If I don't.
Yeah. So you feel like you got to come out and say, because I got to go.
Because there's a little bit of, I get it, and I know people are busy, but there's also a little hint of rudeness to that sometimes. It's almost kind of look, I know you have these things you want to talk about, but I do not want to talk about it any longer than I have to. So I got a hard stop so that I can go to a meeting, Even if it's honest, it still feels a little harsh.
How about this one that to me is just a little bit aged out, but I am still guilty of using it myself, leaning in. You want to lean in? Let's lean into that a little bit.
Maybe
we got to figure this out. Let's lean in,
maybe I might occasionally use that. Not very often.
You're done using that one?
Yeah, I don't feel like that's something I use too often.
Okay, well, here's the final one. Although there are more, the final one that I wanted to call out. Let's take this offline. Does that offend you? Are you sick and tired of hearing people say, hey, let's take that offline? Whereas what this person is saying is, can we talk about it later? Just say what you really want to say. What is this offlining about?
Or we don't want to talk about this in front of everyone else.
That's right. Yes. This is not a topic for everybody.
I don't use that often, but I do feel there's a little bit of value in that because sometimes, especially when you're on a big call with a lot of people, and sometimes the conversation starts going off in a direction that has nothing to do with where you need to be going. And I do think occasionally, if you're the person that has to step up and say that, it's kind of your way of saying, all right, y'all need to shut up now. This is not relevant. This is not what we need to be discussing here. Let's offline this. Really meaning I want you to go discuss it on your own time somewhere else and not involve me. All right.
I got one bonus one for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
How about pivot? Are you using that one? John, I really like what you're proposing, but maybe we should pivot and consider outsourcing our production.
Yes, I think I feel like Here's my thing. This is one of those things where I feel like if our social media team, we have a weekly call about what we're going to do on the socials. Yes. And it's usually my favorite call of the week where we just, we have a lot of fun with it and also come up with some good ideas. I have a feeling if you ask them sometimes things that I say, they would probably say some of these things. And be like, yeah, John's occasionally will say pivot, like, you know. Like, how about we pivot that idea over to this instead? Maybe I wouldn't use the word pivot. I think I'm going to ask the team
of how offensive you are as it relates to these terms as outlined by the Wall Street Journal. Oh, there you go. Right. So now you know if you're kind of maybe you should reevaluate your corporate jargon.
I don't feel like I'm too bad. Like there's none of those you said where I'm just like, oh crap, I say that
all the time. Yeah, okay, good enough. Good enough. All right, what's on your radar, my man?
All right, so this is one of those things I'm coming up with podcast stuff here at the last minute, so I didn't have a great on your radar for this one. So I was starting to think like, all right, is there some interesting piece of technology I've been using at home lately that I can appreciate? And the only thing I can think of is I recently finally bought myself a fairly cheap sound bar for my television. Okay. So I'd been rocking like the Sonos One speakers. Yes.
Is this your main TV?
Yes. Okay. Like the main living room television. Got it. So I've been rocking the Sonos One speakers for a while, and I just never really enjoyed them as much as I didn't think the sound quality was as good as I thought they should be.
Do you have just one? Sorry, Sonos. Do you have one or did you have two?
I had two. Okay. On either side. And plus, like, I just found like they were constantly disconnecting from my Apple TV. Ooh. And just like and sometimes I would just have completely issues where I could not get, like, what was starting to happen is they were just stopping connecting at all entirely. Yeah, they were just becoming more of a problem. And plus, it was also something where like my wife and my son were constantly struggling with how to connect with them. Like the techno guy here, I knew what I was doing. But it was like, I would always be like, can you get the speakers up and running on this? Because like I'm just having to listen to the television right now. Yeah. Okay. And of course the television speakers are usually not all that.
So you got a soundbar. Can I ask a question before you go further? Sure. Does that soundbar have a sub?
Yes.
Okay.
It does.
Continue.
Yes. I made a point out of being like, I don't want to I want to have something extra. And now the trouble with this, not the trouble is like my wife is not the audiophile person. She doesn't really care.
She doesn't care.
And she also is like, I don't want a bunch of things cluttering up the space around the television.
Does she like going to the theater though? Does she like going?
Not really. I'm the theater guy.
So she doesn't even like the immersive sound that you can have going to a theater? It doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters to her. Really.
Okay, go on.
It's like to her, it's like, well, I can hear it. It's fine. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. Which whatever, I get it. It's fine. If that's not your thing, it's not your thing.
There you go.
But I will say, I just bought a fairly inexpensive Yamaha soundbar with a sub, and it has been leaps and bounds better. Yep. I know it still could be infinitely cooler. I know some people are probably like, Yamaha, what? Like you're crazy.
I don't know. Yeah.
Whatever. It is. I honestly, I did a little bit of research and it was like, hey, if you're looking for a mid-level, not terribly expensive option to just add a little extra sound to your, and plus, like, I don't get the opportunity to listen to stuff like at high volume or like big booming, where I do big booming sound anyway. Especially we have a big open plan in our house, so like if my son's upstairs trying to watch TV, if I turn it up too loud downstairs, he's going to hear it.
Yeah, right.
So I don't need anything special, but this has worked out just fine for me. I thought this was a nice, easy. The installation was easy. The connectivity was easy. It works perfectly with the Apple television. I got no issues whatsoever.
I'm an audiophile, right? I love.
You might have a little issue with it, but
I mean, the soundbar that I have on our main TV isn't. Yeah, it's not like. It is not. It is. It cost like less than $200. I think it was like just a. I don't even know what the brand is. Right. Type of. But it does help. I mean, it helps because these TVs. I know we just talked a lot about displays. They just they're not
commercial grade. Yeah.
They're not made for great audio. So so I bought my daughter, my middle daughter. She was had a TV for the longest time. They're like, hey, Dad. We're thinking about getting a soundbar. Do you think that's a good idea? I'm like, oh my God, yes. You will not believe that. You need to go out and get a soundbar. Blah blah blah. We got her a soundbar, and then it was like eye-opening to her. It's like just like what you're saying. It's like the experience now is just so much better when you have just a little bit of audio fidelity. Kind of adding.
It doesn't have to be like a 5.1 channel.
It doesn't. But you look at it and you think about it. A lot of it goes into the cinematography of whatever you're watching. Right, I don't care if it's just a reality TV or a feature film. There's and so people pay a lot of attention to the cinematography, but the audio just as important.
It really does.
It can be.
It does. Well, the other part of this, I've told you I've gotten more into gaming again lately, and I've been playing with the PlayStation 5 for a couple of years now. The Sonos speakers, I could not get them connected to my PS5 at all.
Oh,
which was very frustrating.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
So I basically had to listen to the standard television sound. This thing easily, because it is connected to the television.
TV, yes.
The PlayStation runs directly through it too.
Yeah, nice.
Man.
Yeah.
The different, just playing like MLB The Show, like just hearing like crowd noise.
Does it have like a fake surround settings where you can kind of disperse the audio
like
a little
bit?
Like
it's not super high tech with that,
but it's again, enough to say, hey.
It's enough to know the difference, and it's enough, we were watching one of the Avengers movies the other night, like a big battle sequence is happening. You can feel the rumble a little bit, and it's like, all right, this is what I was. It's not all the way where I'd like to be. If we ever get around to finishing our basement.
Okay, that's where I'm at.
That's where I will go.
So we just finished our basement.
A little crazy problem.
And I put a TV down there like a couple months ago. That's where I go. That has a slightly nicer soundbar and subwoofer, which is why I asked you about the subwoofer. If I want to go feel a movie, I'm going downstairs.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I like.
There are some movies where I still want that to happen. Like if I'm watching a Star Wars movie, I want to feel it just as much as
you want to hear when Jango Fett sets off those sound
100%. Yes.
Yes. You want to feel that.
Yes.
Every bone in your body.
100%. Yes.
That's right.
It matters. Anyway, good stuff. Good stuff.
All right. That is what's on our radar this week. Hey, make sure that your restaurant customers don't miss the big home run or the touchdown. Help them get a good screen up there, but maybe also coach them look, I don't need to see the big home run on 50 screens at once. I just don't. It's going to look the same. Unless they all have a different angle somehow.
Yeah.
Probably not seeing anything there.
Right.
All right, folks. We will see you out there in the nation.